people either write or they photograph. Not many people do both, and so I thought if I can put that together, then I've got my way in the back door.
Yeah.
Because I'm not university educated. I haven't done an internship for 4 years. That's like a writer's degree, I suppose.
Yeah.
So that was my way of saying, hello, I can do both. I can support this with images.
Welcome to the Sevo Show. We have an exciting guest on the show. They're all exciting, but this one I heard talk at a recent photo thing. We'll unpack that in a second because I'm just so excited for you. So Lynn Gail, I just Google her name, Lynn Gail photography, and then you'll see a whole bunch of stuff. Flick through whilst you listen, and then just unfold in the spectacular images that you will discover. Her Instagram will be shared in the description, so go through that if you like. Now, thank you for coming on, Lynn.
Thank you very much for having me. And thanks for the lovely introduction.
Appreciate it. Now, Lynn, are you living your best life?
In many ways, yes. In other ways, like anything that looks quite glossy, there's always the challenges. So it might look, my friends say, have a nice holiday, off you go. But they don't see the work that goes on behind the scenes and then while you're there. So it looks dynamic, but it's not always the case. But I love it.
Yeah.
So I'm living the life the way I want to live it.
Right.
Yes.
Great start. So world-renowned photographer. When I say that, how do you feel?
I don't know. I think world is probably too big for me. It seems too, I don't know about world-renowned, but I don't know. It's quite, world-renowned is quite big, isn't it?
So you work with Nat Geo?
I do work with Nat Geo Traveller in the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not National Geographic because they're two different publications.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the difference there?
The difference is if you pick up more, if you looked at each magazine, one is quite small in size and more nature-based, more related to the world issues, whereas National Geographic Traveller is all about travel.
So it's a niche down.
Yeah, it's a niche magazine. It's won loads of awards. It's one of the biggest selling travel magazines. And they do
in the world?
I think it might have that title, but don't quote me on that.
That's all right. Hey. So going back to the beginning, where did you start? Where was Lynn born?
Where was I born? I was born in Tolworth in the UK, Tolworth, London in the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and from there, how old were you when you first picked up a camera?
Probably I used to be a typesetter.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know what that is. In the old days, they used to put all the lead blocks together, and that's how they would make the newspaper, like the lead, and they'd put that onto the paper.
Okay.
And of course, now it's all digital.
Yeah.
So I worked there, and I was the advert creator, but I just wanted to get into the darkroom.
Yeah.
So that's when I got interested, I guess, in photography, is when I could sneak off into the darkroom and see what they're doing, see them developing. And then from there, I left home when I was 16 and went to live in New Zealand, so I travelled quite a lot. And then in between going backwards and forwards to a few different countries, I emigrated here and I met my husband en route. He was living in China. And he had all the darkroom equipment.
Ooh.
And I thought, well, I'll keep this guy. He's worth keeping. Because he had all the cameras. And it was only just before I left England that I got interested in photography. So
Incredible.
probably when I was about, let's say, 26, I think I was then. So I was just interested in the aperture. And I wanted to know how that worked. That was my inroad, I just wanted to know why this is in focus and this isn't. So that was how I really got interested.
Fantastic.
And then the black and white, seeing them develop in the darkroom,
How gorgeous is black and white?
Oh, it's so gorgeous. And just to see now, you can still do that in digital, but it's quite different.
Yeah.
You've got to work hard to get that old film quality.
Yeah.
But so that was really, I think the darkroom in the newspaper kind of sparked my interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with the Darkroom, for my younger audience, if you could teach a young fella in the current age what a Darkroom is, go for it.
Well, you first have to have a film camera,
Yep.
and obviously you've got your roll of film in there, and then that is, well, I suppose to develop it in the darkroom, it's developed in the chemicals, and there's no dark apart from a red light, so that's how it's all developed. And they put in all the solutions, and then put it on different kinds of paper, just like we print on different kinds of paper.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know whether that's a very good description or not, but
It paints a picture. We don't have to get super technical.
Yeah.
There's the internet. People just Google it.
Yeah, you can. And I'm sure, I think, there's always a revival of film photography.
Yeah, a massive revival.
And I can never say that, cyan types, is that the right word? Where it comes out a bit blue and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all those developing things that you can still do.
Absolutely.
Through TAFE and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's very much there, I think.
You mentioned that the darkroom black and whites have a different feel to the digital black and whites. Can you explain to me what your perception of that is? Perspective, sorry.
I think maybe that grain, like you can create that grain digitally, but it doesn't look the same. That feel is different. That, I don't know, there's just a different quality of maybe the blacks and the grayscale, from your 1 to 10. So you've got all those different scales going through, and I think it's just different when it's developed in those chemicals.
Yeah. So when you were 26 and you first picked up that camera...
Well, I didn't really have one then, or did I? I think I had just a little point and shoot.
That's all right.
But it wasn't until I met my husband that I actually used his cameras.
What year was this? When you met your husband?
I
And
don't know, 1987, 18. You should have asked me these questions so I could have got the dates before I come.
that's all right. So mid-80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Just a rough paint picture. That's fine. Your now husband. Would you say that he influenced you?
No, not really, because he was living in China and I was emigrating here.
Mm-hmm.
So then I moved up to China.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started probably picking up the cameras then.
Yeah.
So he had the old AE1, the Canons, where you'd put your film in. And that's where you learnt, for me, photography in the old-fashioned way, because you didn't have all the dials and buttons.
No.
You had to learn that triangle, and that was it.
The exposure triangle.
The exposure triangle, yeah. So
I was still fortunate to learn it like that, and I remember picking up. It was digital by then, but I'd looked at the principles through the books.
Yeah, and if you can teach that, and if someone can learn that before anything else, and not get bogged down in all the menus, which we know, everyone gets so bogged down in all the menus.
It's overcomplicated. It's like cars these days.
It's so overcomplicated. You get in a car and it's, trying to turn the radio on.
I prefer the, what do you call it? The mechanical cars.
Yeah,
just
manual. Yeah.
less things to go.
To try and work out.
Yeah, exactly. So with these cameras, by the way, I remember my biggest breakthrough was looking at the light meter.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. Have that little thing.
Yeah.
The little one in the... Yeah.
And that gave me all I needed and all the confidence to go, okay, this is going to be a photo that will look subjectively good.
Yeah.
Subjectively
subjectively good. And that's a good comment. And if if you want to underexpose or overexpose, you can just seeing that the little wavering needle in the viewfinder really helps you to, because you don't have all the other things the bolts and whistles to worry about. So
and not fear that it's going to be too dark or overexposed, but just only if it was blurry, I guess, but then the shutter speed, and that's one of the dials that you focus on.
Absolutely. And I think there's more freedom in that too, because it's more creative in a way. And I think the histogram now, the people are trying to get that right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter where that histogram is.
No.
It just, whether you expose all the way this way or that way, it doesn't
And what do you want to achieve with it?
Exactly. It's what you want to achieve.
Yeah.
So really the histogram.
It's kind of adding an element of, is it perfect or not? And if it's not, you think it's not good enough.
Yeah, if the histogram's too much to the midtones or the highlights, that doesn't matter as long as the image that you've created, you're happy with.
Yeah.
That's the main thing, really,
Yeah.
isn't it? That you're happy with that image and that narrative within that image.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go to your late 20s and then into your early 30s. What was your first kind of experience like when you started taking those photos and then seeing them in front of you after you've processed them? What was that like?
I think I didn't do Darkroom then. I did a Darkroom course when I first got to Australia, but because I was living overseas with my then husband, kind of got waylaid and didn't make it to Australia for a few years later. So I did a Darkroom. It was only an 8-week black and white, but it was amazing. It was really amazing, just a night school. So I wasn't really processing properly per se, as in a proper darkroom at home or anything like that. So I was actually working as a medical receptionist, and then I would do darkroom photography. And then I joined a camera club, which was back in the day Wanneroo Camera Club, which is now Northern Exposure Photography Group. So it was there really that I was very inspired by. There was some really good photographers there. It was a very small club, all men apart from one other woman. And that was where I really learned my photography. And there was a man there that said, he was photographing day care centres, with children. He said, I don't want to do it anymore. Do you want to do it? And so I went and did that. But they didn't want the sit-down backdrop scenario. They wanted kids on the run, natural, which actually suited me.
Yeah.
So I'd fly around. They had, I think, over 100 kids. So I'd flew around this daycare centre for about 2 weeks, and I got these natural portraits, and she loved them. So I think that was and I'm okay at this. I can do this, because I didn't think I could. But I always give things a try. I always push. If I don't think I can do it, so I'll give it a try. And I thought, okay, I'm okay at this. So then that was my starting point to develop into weddings, and I built an outdoor portrait studio with a friend, we got all our things from the tip.
Yeah.
And we built that outdoors. And so we had all our family, we had families that would come up, and that was really the catalyst. And then I was always wanting to travel, so when my kids were old enough, it grew into that.
Yeah. So how old were you when you had kids?
30 when I had my first.
30,
Yeah.
right. My wife will be 30 as she's delivering the baby, because it's 3 days before her birthday.
Her 31st or?
Her 30th.
30th.
Yeah. So she's 29 at the moment. But
okay.
So medical receptionist, kid at 30, and then more kids?
Then one when I was 35.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're still trying to make this photography thing a full-time thing, yeah?
Yeah, it is pretty much quite...
At that time?
Oh, at that time.
Yeah.
I want to be able to be home for my kids.
Yeah.
So it worked really well that I could do, like with the outdoor studio and the weddings, I could share it with my husband. So it worked really well, because then you're there for your kids all the time.
How good is that?
Yeah.
And
so
you get to create.
It worked really well. So I just started doing actually stuff at home and writing for Australian Photography magazine on creating stuff at home. And I think I did one for Better Photography magazine, and just really what you could do at home while your when your kids are small. So that's how my writing started.
Ah, okay. And then a passionate writing thing began.
So
really?
yeah, it was there, but not until more recently, really, the travel writing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're really piecing the puzzles
puzzle together. It's a tricky puzzle.
No, it's fascinating. This is for me, what we do in this studio, in the podcast show, is there are people out there who need a blueprint like yours to give them the confidence to take the first step.
Yeah.
Researching, reading books, reading articles, those will help.
Yeah.
But hearing someone tell their story, talk about the pain points, that is and the success stories as well. That's the real stuff, and that's what I want to bring out.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, in your 30s, when did you decide to leave the medical administration?
Oh, that was pretty quick. Since I was probably 15, 16, I've chopped and changed many jobs. So that was just another one in a pretty long list.
Yeah.
And probably until I found photography, that was something that really made me focus. So yeah, I think when I had my second, I was doing part-time medical reception and really just putting the photography in with that, and then doing the weddings, and when we built the portrait studio, that was up at Nowragup. So we used to have families up there and let the kids run wild and that, yeah.
So now it then became a sustainable business?
Supported by my husband, yes.
Okay.
It wasn't a full-time income by any means, but it certainly helped out quite a lot.
And what did your husband do at the time?
He's an engineer.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Maintenance engineer.
Nice.
Yeah.
And in that journey, in that time, how important is it, and not just speaking back to me, but to other couples out there who have a creative wife or husband, how important is it for the support of the spouse?
So important. Without his support, if he ever listens to this, I always say thank you anyway. I don't think I could have done it, because when I got into the travel side of things, and he's still got to be at home to look after the children at a certain age, and not only that, just to support me, because I did a couple of self-funded trips just to build up my stock library with Lonely Planet. So obviously Lonely Planet don't pay for you to go when I was building that up. So I self-funded those trips. So he supported me a lot in that. So it's to me, it's what makes your heart beat, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, if you haven't got that, I mean, I'd rather have materialism at the end of the day means so little. Comforts, of course, you want your home comforts, but I want to go out with my memories, you know, and there's a lot of them, and I'd much prefer that than to be surrounded by. Yeah. So it's living within your means, isn't it, and creating a comfortable home to be able to support your children as well. So,
that's it. That's all you really need.
Yeah, that's all you need.
Those materialistic things, they create memories, but there's an expiry date.
There is an expiry date. With anything new you get, whether it's clothes, car, what have you, get used to that very quickly, and then you're on to the next. And we are like a very user society now, aren't we? The tips are just too full.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Consumerism.
whereas back in the day, gosh, you know, you had so little, but you didn't know you had little because you just made it work.
Yeah.
And now the consumerism is very high.
Very high. And then travel. The travel for me is one of the best experiences you could ever gift yourself.
It's huge. Travel changes you. It gratifies your world. I don't know. I mean, some people don't have that want to travel, and that's fine too, because they might be happy in what they're doing. But when you've got itchy feet, and I was born with them, it fulfills your world.
Yeah.
There's so much out there.
Yeah. And even the people that may not want to travel, I say to everyone, give it a go. Give it a go.
Yes.
See how you feel. If it's out of your comfort zone and then it unlocks you, changes you for the better.
Exactly.
But you know, it isn't for everybody.
I've seen many people be unlocked by travel.
Yeah, that's the big one.
Many people. I mean, life-changing is like a cliche, but it really is life-changing.
It is. It is. So speaking of life-changing, when did you start? So you finished your stock portfolio.
Yeah, I finished all that, and my one-but-door neighbour was a journalist. So she'd seen my photography, and she said, just phone up a magazine and say, you know, you can write and do all that. So me being me, I phoned up a magazine, and it was called For Me magazine. It's not in print anymore. And I said, look, I can write. I'm a photographer. And before I knew it, she was sending me on all these jobs all around Perth. So that was a little way into the magazine side of things.
Yeah.
So that was another little route to where I was going. So from there, I was still doing all the portrait stuff and the weddings, but because we had to shoot slide film, so they would give you the rolls of slide and then they would send them over. So I never really saw the results. You just saw what they would put in the magazine. But that was just getting into that magazine mentality of developing features and writing for magazines.
All right.
Yeah, so she just took me on my word. Luckily, she took me on my word, the editor of this magazine. And like the first time I turned up to this job, I thought, oh my God, I've never written. And it was a thing about couples. And I was so nervous when I turned up, and they didn't know that I was nervous, and then it all fell into place. But it's just putting yourself out there, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, definitely got to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
And in this day and age, you got to put yourself out there more because more people want to do photography.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, look how everybody's, so many people, and and then even then you add writing with trained university writers. You add that into the pot, and I've never been to university, so I've always self-taught. So I thought there's no way I'll be able to get into the writing world. But again, I just did a couple of courses online and just knocked on every editor's door, and then got my first job up in East Arnhem Land with the Yolngu people. I don't know if you've heard of the Yolngu. They're the most intact Indigenous group within Australia. So they live on the homelands up in East Arnhem Land. They live on dry communities. So I got a job with Australian Traveller magazine, which is one of the longest selling within Australia. And she sent me up there, and I did my first feature.
Yeah.
And they had me up there, and that was the only time I had like a feature kind of a bit rewritten. I didn't write it very well, but I learned so much from that trip.
Of course.
And it was that trip was quite life-changing, being up there with the Yolngu people,
So you mentioned that you did a couple of courses for writing to improve yourself. Mm-hmm. Now, you're showcasing a few different things, following your passion, which you did.
Yeah.
You're making it work, having support, which is important.
Very important.
And not everybody gets lucky with that.
No, they really don't. They really don't.
So, but the next thing that you needed to become a travel journalist, photojournalist, right?
Yeah, both work, I think.
Is you needed to have writing skills.
Yeah.
And you went and learnt that. You went and figured it out. You didn't go, oh, damn, I can't write. I'm just going to stick to portraits in my backyard with families.
Yeah.
You went and said, no, I want to travel the world, take portraits and magnificent images, tell a story. Pictures say 1,000 words, but you want to give actual context.
Yeah. You need the words to
and
go.
You figured it out. Yeah. You did it. You had a go. It was re-edited, and you didn't take offence.
No.
You used that as a learning experience.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
Then I had the bug. Because I thought, if I've got the photographs and if I can write, people either write or they photograph. Not many people do both. And so I thought, if I can put that together, then I've got my way in the back door.
Yeah.
Because I'm not university educated. I haven't done an internship for 4 years. That's like a writer's degree, I suppose.
Yeah.
So that was my way of saying, hello, I can do both. I can support this with images. And I think that's probably was my stepping stone of being able to get through. I do know some people that do that, but the majority will do one or the other.
No, it's definitely, I admire the photographers and videographers now who are going out there and putting text in the captions.
Videography is not, because sometimes they'll ask me, I got asked to do a job recently, and that sort of company wants drone, they want video, they want words, they want the whole, and it's a lot, because to do each one very well in a short amount of time, it's too much. And not only that, the equipment that you have to travel with to do all those things.
Yeah.
So
The planning and the execution, the editing.
Unless you're going to that location for 3 months or something like that.
Yeah.
If you're only going for a short amount of time and you're interviewing people and you're writing and you're photographing, it's a lot to do each one skillfully.
Yeah, very true, very true. And I've always wanted to do that sort of thing. I admire the people that can write. I'm getting better through just practice.
Yes, practice. Look, I every time I write something, I edit it and edit it. Husband reads it. I edit it and I look at it and go, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Then I like it. Then I don't like it.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I'm the same.
It's like photography. You like an image, then you hate it, you know.
I found imagery significantly easier to love.
Oh, me too. It's much easier.
And not because I'm lazy and I don't want to paint or write. I was fascinated like you. Like the whole bokeh thing that you mentioned before.
Yes.
The telling a story through the image. And a couple of people that inspired me. One stands out from YouTube. I remember watching him. His name is John Free. He was doing all this stuff in America. And he did some videos. He'd just walk along, mic up. Someone would walk along and video him, and he would just... I think he'd probably be 60s, 70s back then. And he would just go up and say, right, there's a moment everywhere, an opportunity, but you want to have at least 3 elements that tell the story.
Yeah.
Two you can get away with 2, but one thing, it's boring. It's not interesting. And he did it so easily, but with years of experience. And I took that on board, and I'd walk through the street. And my favorite thing about photography to me is the way that it gives you mindfulness. It just sets you in the scene, really stop and think and observe everything around you.
Yeah, you really do. You become such an observer.
Yeah.
You see everything that's going on, especially in street photography.
Yes, street photography.
Once your eye is tuned in and you start to blend things together and that layers, it's like you say, one thing's not enough. You know, you need that second and definitely third layer or element to make it interesting, to keep that viewer's eye looking at it.
I remember when I first started 10 years ago, I picked up a camera, a proper one. And, well, any camera's a proper camera if you know how to use it. But I would say the DSLR, I picked up a Nikon. It was a 7200. And I took it around the street one afternoon, walked around, and there was sprinklers on one of the neighbours. And underneath were some white galahs just... flapping their wings, having a little shower. Yeah. I was like, that'll do. First one. And that was my first post on my Instagram.
Was it? Okay.
And then I was hooked in terms of, right, I'm going to take photos of birds. That was my first thing.
Yeah, and that's mine was flowers, you know. Everyone's got their starting.
I love the flowers, You know. Then I got into macro photos.
Yes, I did that, macro,
Yeah. Then landscapes. Yeah. I dabbled with long exposure at night, light painting. Yeah. I think I spent 3 hours. I didn't even feel like 3 hours. I was on one of those overpass bridges over the freeway. And I would just sit there and take the same photo. Yeah. Just there, take the same photo.
It's quite meditative, isn't it, when you're like that? Because you're just zoned out to everything else and you're just... you really enjoy the moment.
Yeah. When I was growing up, I loved fishing. Right?
Okay.
Fishing and just casting out, reeling in.
I see you fishing.
Right?
I don't know why.
And whether or not I caught a fish, I had the best time.
Exactly, and that's it.
Same with photography.
Yes.
Whether or not I take subjectively a great photo, I was enjoying myself.
Exactly.
And I could go back to that moment of enjoyment through that image I took, regardless of if it's award-winning. Yeah. And I thought, this is great. And for the longest time, I captioned my Instagram bio, a photograph is a ticket to a memory otherwise forgotten. I've read that somewhere and I'm like, I'm taking that and I'm going to put it on bio.
It really is.
I don't remember who said it. I should really know. But,
there was a quote like that the other day. I put in the PPWA newsletter, but it wasn't the same, but... It was very similar
Yeah.
kind of quote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and this is the main topic I want to discuss with you today, is that passion of just it's your thing.
It's, yes.
No one else, doesn't matter anyone else.
Yeah.
I want to take a photo of this bird and I don't care
Yeah.
that someone else thinks it's weird or dumb or stupid or boring. I learned a lot about birds. I remember I watched a movie back in 2011. It's got Jack Black, Steve Martin.
Oh, okay.
You know the one?
Yeah, I don't know. I know. I
Not
like
Steve
both.
Martin.
I know, Jack Black.
Jack Black, Owen Wilson, and there's another one in there. Oh, I forget. I think it was Steve Martin, actually.
What's the name of that? Because that sounds like a good cast.
A Big Year.
It's called A Big Year.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all about birding.
Okay, that
and
sounds
photography.
interesting.
And the Owen Wilson's the kind of the, I think it's the protagonist. He was the they're all racing to get to sight or hear as many birds as possible in 1 year, a big year.
Huh.
And it's a calendar year. And like throughout the year, different seasons, birds migrate and you get some rare ones. I think the record was like 198 or something different species seen.
Yeah, yeah.
And the rule is, and it's an honour system as well.
Yeah.
You have to...
So it's almost like the twitches.
Yeah. So you take a photo, or if you hear the call and you can identify it, obviously if you're a birder, then, you know, if you know, you know. And, document it where you saw it. And then at the end of the year, in January the following year, gives you the standings of who did it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? And I was like, wow, that's really cool. And I was in America at the time on a trip when I saw the movie. So I was in the place that they were doing it.
Okay.
And then from there, 4 or 5 years later, I picked up the camera. I was like, oh, do I want to be obsessed with this yet? I'll get obsessed with photography.
Yeah.
Not quite birding, even though I did research all the birds I was taking. I've got an app now. You take a photo of the bird.
I know.
And it tells you exactly where it is, everything.
I was like, they're incredible.
It's like, you know, the concept of Pokemon, right?
Yes, yes.
But real.
Tell you where, real proper.
Real proper.
Things.
Oh, what a concept. And anyway, so I evolved from birds to landscapes, and then I was taking landscapes, and my first trip with the camera was back home to Kyrgyzstan.
Okay.
And I took some street photos there, people and just moments, and I had the macro lens with me, and I had a big 400mm landscapes, beautiful Kyrgyzstanian mountains.
Yes, I nearly went there once. Yeah,
my home.
It looks incredible.
Oh, I climbed up like these big hills, some people call them mountains, just to take that one photo at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. There's your passion.
Yeah, well, I was like, wow, this is me, this is it. And when I got home, I remember my rule at the start when I began was take a photo every day.
And it's a really good rule. I've tried to do that and I've never done it, but it's a good rule.
I remember I bought a photo album where you had to literally print the photos out.
Yeah.
And there was 160 pages or something. So I called it Project 160.
Yeah, that's a good idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
To get as many pages in there.
Right. And then,
that's great.
So those were my foundational photos of when I started photography.
Yeah.
And at the time, like, I didn't read any of this for someone to tell me that that's what you had to do.
Yeah, yeah.
But in my mind, I've always had this thing, like, whatever I want to start to do, I need to get the base model of the equipment that I need.
Yeah.
Before I can graduate to the better model.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So I've got a $400 guitar that I was gifted when I was 15.
Yeah.
$400 guitar. And I was like, man, I really love a Taylor or a Martin or something, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 that's got that sound.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that means yet.
Yeah,
I need to play it. I need to be able to memorize
how do you
it.
make it sound like that?
Yeah, and I need to play it consistently.
Yeah.
And 15, 20 years later, I feel like I've almost validated that. But going back to the camera stuff, when I was just taking the photos, my mission was to take the photos as best I could from the camera, no editing. Absolutely no editing.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Real colors and learn the gamma, the white balance, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I did that. And in those formative photos, I put a caption in, just my thoughts about the photo. That's it.
Yeah.
And that was my beginning of my writing.
Yeah.
I don't call myself a great writer at all, but I'm still learning. And
You might
then
be surprised.
right,
I
exactly.
think you'd be-
But then I had a friend. Her name's Jade. She was into photography as well, and great photographer. She lives in Dubai. She taught me. She showed me Lightroom.
Okay.
Right, and I knew about Lightroom.
Yeah,
I knew about Photoshop, but I was like, not yet.
Yeah.
Right. If I'm going out there to take photos and relying on software to make it better,
Yeah.
it's going to be shit with sugar on it. You know.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But then I fell in love with the whole, this is 2016, 2017. I fell in love with the whole like digitizing and the digital
It's really
arts.
hard not to.
Right.
You know.
I got sucked into the trends of like those real kind of abstract colours.
Yeah, you could play around with it so much. Like when I first did film, there was nothing like that. So each time I took a shot, I'd write down the settings.
Yeah.
Next shot.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
So when all my little 6x4s came back, I'd match them to the settings to see what was what.
Yeah.
You know, but again, you learned so much from doing that because there was no other way. Whereas now you can just look on the back of the camera and went, oh, I shot that a bit slow. Or you can hear
the
it.
metadata,
You might want a blurred shot, but sorry.
That was one of the things that I did in every description. I always put the 3 settings that I had.
Yep. And the feelings that you had at the time. Yeah, so that's really
and
important.
That's it. And I evolved into 2018 to a friend of mine, her name's Jan, and she said to me one day, you should take photos of people or put a person in the landscape, add something there.
Yeah, I like a person.
And I thought, I don't know, I don't want to take photos of people, I don't know. But then I thought, a person in the photo makes it believable.
It does. I don't know, because landscapes still speak.
Oh yeah, for sure.
By themselves, but
I'm talking about the scale of the image.
It's definitely the scale.
Yeah.
But I'm like you. I always want a person, and I have to force myself to not have people.
Yeah.
Because some landscapes are just beautiful and isolated by themselves. But I do think, if only a person would walk in, just whoops.
That's right. My most memorable trip with photography was when I went to South Africa with my mum. She took me on safari.
Okay.
It was like my university present.
Yeah, okay.
Because I became a teacher.
Yeah.
And she's a teacher too. And I got the big 5 in my first day.
Wow.
Yeah. And I took a picture of the leopard, which is the hard one to get. And
did you have a big
kahuna
lens?
I had a 400 mil, the same 400 mil I took to Kyrgyzstan.
Okay.
And my friend Siobhan, she let me borrow it from her, and I took it with that lens. And I couldn't believe how good the photo. It's still one of my favourite photos to this day.
Is quite special.
Yeah, and then I learned Photoshop because there was kind of a few different elements in the way of the leopard that I was like,
I know. So once you know Photoshop, you can just tweak it a bit and take that little bit out.
What was your favourite trip you've been on so far?
Arnhem Land was one of my most special trips, which is one of my first ones.
Yeah.
There's been many special trips since then. Well, I've just come back from the Maldives. That was a ballet retreat, which I think I spoke about briefly when you saw me at PPWA. That was incredible because it was a ballet teacher who was trained by the Royal Ballet, and she teaches retreats around the world, but also getting to know her story. And I was actually doing the retreat as well. So obviously not one of the younger students in the class. So again, that was challenging. But as soon as I saw it come up, I thought, I've got to do that. I've really got to do that. But she broke her back when she was 19. And so she could never do the career that she thought she was, mentally promised, I suppose. And so then she was in a wheelchair for over a year, I think. So she learned how to walk again, and now she teaches around the world. So to hear her story and to see her vitality for life and to be on that retreat in this stunning setting was, that recent trip was quite special. But and then the one before that was not before that, but another special trip was the Henyao, which again I might have touched on at PPWA, and that's the ladies that free dive for shellfish in the ocean in Jeju Island.
Yeah, I remember.
Sadly, where that plane crash was about a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
The plane was from Jeju Island, because not many people have heard of Jeju Island, so it's just come on the map, sadly, through that. But to meet these ladies and spend the day with them and try and free dive with them, because they've got no equipment.
They got iron lungs.
They just go down and they do this, and they were in their 70s, these ladies, and they just go down and they come up and they didn't speak any English, so of course had an interpreter. But to spend the day with them, and it's not a touristic kind of thing, so it's just you, and then when you're going out on the boat and you learn about their lives, and now I'm reading a book about them, and the most incredible people, like they're just semi-matriarchs of the island. And
what's your method or your process on, planning that trip and going out to a destination on an assignment? Tell me about the planning process before you go on the trip. What do you do?
Well, what happens, I've got various things that I do. Like if I find a country, like I did a trip to Bhutan last year. I ran a tour to Bhutan a few years just before COVID, and then I wanted to get back there without running a tour, because when you're running a tour, you don't get into the culture so much. It's there, but you're more worried about the people in your group. So I wanted to go back there and write about it and absorb it, the Buddhism, for myself. So I just found a country will pop into my head, so I think I've got to find out how to get there. So then you need to find like a company that might support you to take you there, which is usually a PR. So it's Bhutan Tourism. So then I located the PR for there and contacted them, and basically you say, well, will you support me to go to Bhutan if I can get some commission features? And they say yes, and then they plan the itinerary around the stories that you're going to write. Then you go to the magazines, you say, I'm going to write, will you commission the story? And if they say yes, then they'll confirm the trip. So it's like the triangle in photography. There's me, the PR, and then there's the tourism body. Yeah. So they'll plan the itinerary, you okay it. Sometimes those trips are called a group familiarisation, so it's called a group famil. So maybe 6 of you might go on this trip. But those trips are very time intensive. They're very, it's like here at 10, there at 11, here at 12. It's really get snippets of this place. They try and push everything into a small amount of time. Whereas if you can have a famil by yourself, you've got that freedom to kind of manipulate the itinerary, I suppose, to write that story that you want to write.
Yeah, you want to write.
That I want to write. Right. Because if it's something that you're passionate in and you have an interest in, you're going to write it a lot better than, say, if you're going to write something that clearly doesn't speak to you, I suppose. But obviously you will still try if you were on that job, because you're always going to try and deliver.
Of course.
But it's much easier, isn't it, when you're got that passion to write about it.
Exactly. And this is the main topic I wanted to really nail today. When does passion become just a job?
Yeah, there's definitely that side. I think when you on a trip, you can start to get quite tired. So if you're jet lagged, and you might hit the ground running, and it might be something that you've seen before, you've done it before, you've written about it before. How do you write about this differently? So a good example is I've got my 5th or 6th trip coming up this year with a company called Sea Trek Sailing Adventures, which again I touched on at PPWA, and they're the 2 schooners. They're an amazing niche adventurous company. One boat takes 12 and one boat takes 24. So they cover everything for me. They're not cheap trips, but you go out to the back and beyond around Indonesia seas. So this is I think it's on my 5th or 6th trip, So I've got to come up again, and that doesn't really get old school, but it's coming up with a unique angle. So trying to come up with a unique angle on those islands again, because you're snorkeling, you're going to villages.
Yeah.
So how often? And I don't like repeating myself.
No, that's fine.
You know, because it's like taking the same photo over and over. It's got to be fresh.
Yeah.
So but also, going back to your question, it can sometimes feel like any job, the humdrum. You know, if you're traveling on your own, sometimes you get a bit lonely. You know, if it's just you and you're eating by yourself every night, or you're doing a lot of planning by yourself, that side of it, you know, sometimes you think, I just want some company, but then other times I quite like my own company. So I'm just trying to, there are definitely humdrum moments when you get home, and then you're spending a lot of time processing, getting all the writing together, so that becomes quite insular. So all that excitement's over, and then you're home and you're putting it all together. So that there's that balance, you know. And then if you haven't got a couple of trips coming up, then you've got to make that happen. So it's not given to you. You've got to keep working for that next job, that next commission. Yeah,
the travel journalism, photojournalism as well. There's so much more to it, and that's the essence of this podcast as well. Is what you're doing, there's other people that are wanting to do or curious about, maybe interested, but they don't know the day-to-day. So thank you for being so transparent with the day-to-day.
Yeah. It's just like anything, and I always say that too, because it looks amazing when you deliver these photos and these features, and that's all they see.
Yeah.
It's like anything, isn't it? People don't see what goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah. Oh, she got to go to Japan. She got to take that photo.
Yeah, she's in the Maldives. She's got an over-the-water villa. And yes, that is amazing. But then after that, you're only there for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And then when you come back, that workload starts, and then the next trip comes up. So you're always planning. And then if I'm running a photography tour, which doesn't happen so much, that's a whole different ball game, because there's a whole different set of plans going in that. So it's having your fingers kind of in a few pies.
When you first started taking photos and you were told that this was going to end up where you were going to end up, how would you feel about that, hearing it back then?
I never would have seen it.
You never would have seen it?
I never would have thought I'd be where I'm at now.
Would you have still committed? In terms of I'm talking
absolutely.
I'm talking about the doing it for creative as a passion to then doing it as a job.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because I had that bee in my bonnet of following that path. Mm-hmm. So regardless of the outcome, I would have followed that.
Yeah.
Because I always said to myself, well, if the doors keep closing, that's okay. I'll keep knocking.
Nice.
And I'll just keep going until that door comes open and one editor commits.
Yeah. Yeah.
So whether I had confidence in my ability, I don't really know. I just didn't give up.
But what about the hard parts, the parts that you'd rather not do but you had to do? What's that feeling like when you're in it?
The hard parts. In what respect? I'm trying to think.
So what tasks? If you could delegate it to someone else and to free up your time, what would those tasks be?
Pitching is quite hard.
Yeah.
Pitching, because you have to pitch very concise to an editor. Some editors will give you a number of words you have to pitch in, which can be very small. So you've got to make that so concise for them to go, yep, I want that story. It's like your interview. Each time you submit that to an editor, they get gazillions every day. So it's even the byline, the subject line in the email, if they don't read that and go, I want that story, often you don't hear back. So you just go on to the next one and the next one. So if you've got somebody that can do that better than you, that would be,
That'd
but
be
then
ideal.
they would never do it in your own words as well.
That's
So
also a problem.
that is definitely a task that when initially I'd spend ages. I'd do my pitch, print it out, rewrite it, print it out, printer's going, I'm rewriting, until I go, yes, and that's just the pitch.
Yeah,
you know?
you haven't even got the
I haven't even
booking.
got the gig.
Yeah.
Nothing's happened. That's just the initial step.
Yeah.
I think running photography tours, the logistics of all the researching of the flights, that accommodation, the talk, all that's heavy task. That's quite time intensive. But for the writing journalistic side, I think it's just getting your foot in the door of each trip.
Yeah. And what about the business side?
The business side, in what way?
So you have to make an income, right?
Yeah.
So, quotes, because that's part of the pitch, right? And then the logistics of what you just mentioned, the booking the flights. I know you mentioned the tours.
The companies, say I'm going to Japan in a few weeks, and each company does everything quite differently. They've been brilliant. They book everything. They book the pre-hotels, the after hotels, book your taxis when you're there, send us the receipts. So some companies will just do everything for you. You've just got to turn up at the airport.
Nice.
So all that groundwork's done. That's where tours are probably a little bit different, where you're doing all that groundwork. So say I'm going with a company in a few weeks. They're called Walk Japan. So they just do, basically, you get a commission, turn up. Job's done.
I'd love to get onto that. I'd love to go to Japan. It's like, here's some cash. Here's what we need from you. Great.
That's it. That's pretty much.
That's awesome.
I mean, obviously, you've still got we're hiking through snow for I don't know how many hours a day, but it's not extreme. But of course, you still got to deliver.
Yeah, of course.
But that's really your only pressure in a job like that.
Yeah. When you say you got to deliver, how much of that mindset changes from, I really wish I could just take the photos that I would take in the moment as if I was just here on holiday, versus I need to take the right photo for these people so they're happy?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I first started, I used to get quite maybe a little bit anxious when I knew I was going to interview that person or go to that area where I knew I had to get that content. So I'd have my shot list that I knew I had to get, my questions that I knew I had to ask. So I always used to make sure I'd get those shots first, and then after that, free range.
You go play.
And get creative.
Yeah.
And then often I would always send those creative images just in case they're going to use those, because to me they're the ones that,
Yeah.
that
And how often do
standard.
they prefer the creative ones?
I think a bit of both, maybe. I can't give you a clear answer.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because I'm not really sure.
You
I'd
mentioned
have to look back at my features.
Yeah, you mentioned when at the when you were talking before at PPWA,
Yeah.
you were on a trip to Japan and you got there and everybody else was sleeping, but you had to get up because of the time.
Yes.
And you were rushing around, but realistically you would have loved to just kind of stroll through.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, that was when we got to what's the name of the mountain? I want to say Mount Como. And that's
Mount
not
Fuji.
right.
Mount
No,
Fuji?
it's not Mount Fuji. It's
Here or in Japan?
it's in Japan.
Oh, I don't know anything other than Mount Fuji.
Oh,
What,
anyway,
what island is it on?
it's on the main.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd have to look.
That's all right.
It's a bit tricky now.
Well,
we're sitting here.
you were busy. You were
But
busy taking-
anyway, we got there late at night. It was dusk, and I obviously didn't have anything. We were staying in a monastery for just that one night, and so I had no content. Light had gone, so I knew that I had to get up early, and that they told me the shops, nothing opened at a certain time. So I thought, stuff it. I'm going to get up early anyway, and so I ran down through the village, and then a monk came out, and I chatted to him, he didn't speak any English, so I photographed him, and then I ran on down the street and photographed something else. So I just because this was actually a photographic essay, but it was also with 500 words. So luckily, I got from getting up, running down the street that morning, I got all the content that I needed. So, yeah.
Amazing. When you approach someone to take their photo that they never met before, what's your process there?
I just usually try and be really open, friendly, just make that connection. Some people you will never make that connection with. Others, it's just taking that time to maybe explain what you're doing, but also, talk a little bit about yourself, make a connection with them, and then if it feels right, because obviously if it's just a photojournalistic shot and they're within a scene, that's different.
Yeah.
To me, sitting like this close to you and then just going, once you've made that connection, and if the backdrop's right, or you might ask them to move a little bit. Like, say, at the moment you've got a plant growing out of your head. So I would probably get you to move if I feel that person would be happy.
Yeah.
And, like that photograph of that monk that came out of the monastery, I actually did that with my hands, and he did that. And can you hold that? And so he was just so peaceful, and he had his hands here. And he was just standing in the archway of this monastery, so I didn't even have to move him. And the light, morning ambient light on his face. So.
Isn't that
and
great?
you know when you've got that shot.
You do.
Just know it.
That feeling, it's like...
You get that feeling, yep, got it.
That's a feeling that money cannot buy.
Yeah, you've got that shot that you can use.
One of my favourite things that I see overseas is the Chicago hedge. So specific time of year, the sun goes between the streets.
Okay.
Down in the, they call it the loop.
Yeah.
Magnificent.
Is that like that real warm sunlight?
Yeah, but the sun is perfectly setting or rising between the buildings.
Okay.
There's an app that can tell you when that happens anywhere in the world on any street.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's fantastic. So I found the app. I have to remember. I think it's called Photo Pills, and I went, and it's around November where it happens here, the Perth Hedge.
I never heard of that.
And you go down St. George's Terrace. You know where that water tower, old water building is, the Seaway O'Connor building?
Yeah.
You know, the arched one?
Yeah.
Just before the bridge that goes over the Narrows, at about, I don't remember the time it is. I think it's 5:30, around 5:30, 6 o'clock. You get there early, it's all right. You set up, get a coffee, you'll be fine.
Do other people know about it? Do you get quite a lot of other photographers? Or?
So when I went there, it was only me.
Yeah.
And it was only that maiden time that I did it. And I had the most fun. But I went and lined myself up in the middle of the street. Fortunately, the street has that little island in the middle, so you can put your tripod down and it's not going to affect traffic. Yeah. There's no traffic anyway. And you can probably time the hedge to be on a Sunday because you get a window of about a week.
Oh, okay. So,
because of the sun.
Would do. Yes, of course.
And the timing is you have to be good with maths and science here and understand astronomy. But when the sun rises, it rises above the sea level, not above the hills of Perth. So you have to give it a little bit extra time. But when it peeks through that street, when you're in a car, you're oh my God, this is a terrible time of day to go down the street. Yeah. But as a photographer, you're like, oh my God, I need to come back here tomorrow at this time to take this photo. Yeah. And so this was still when I had my the DSLR, the Nikon. Yeah. I'd put it on the tripod, put on the timer, and I'd run down and be the person in the photo because you're just a silhouette with a perfect shadow.
Yeah, that would be an awesome shot.
And it was incredible. And I got
Is that on
featured.
your Instagram account?
It is, but you'll have to scroll down. Like, it'll take you a day to scroll down all of the videos and stuff. I'll do it for you and I'll send it to you.
You do a lot of content. I've been scrolling. It's like, I need to do that.
That's
much content.
But that's where that obsession and that experimental phase, and kids ask me every day online,
Yeah.
Sev, how do I start taking photos? I was like, pick up your phone and take photos.
Just get out there.
Go experiment.
Yeah, go experiment. See what
Yeah.
speaks to you.
See what
because-
inspires you.
Yes.
And see if you can replicate it. See if you can figure out how to replicate it. You don't have to become a copycat and whatever.
It's like a feeling.
Yeah.
If it feels good, then photograph
Yeah.
it. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's been your favorite memory of a time someone gave you a credit, like flowers about your photos? I'll give you my quick example. The Riverside Drive, right? Got all the palm trees and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the sun peaks up. I took a photo there, and it was like the way that I composed it. Oh, I just loved it. It felt like Miami Vice vibes. And I did a bit of, color grading to make it a little bit neon and the purples and the oranges and the reds for the sun, and then the greens and the blues really made it vibrant. And then I loved it. I was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
This is cool. Left it. And then 6-7 years later, someone said, Sev, can I use that for my album cover, for my music solo thing?
Okay, yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's cool. He's like, how much does it cost? I was like, deep inside me, I was like, just give it to him for free.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was like, business.
Yeah.
$500
Yeah,
bucks.
yes.
$500
Yeah,
bucks. How's that? He's
yeah.
like, yeah, awesome. I was like, awesome. That's so cool. But I was happy to give it to him for free.
Because he loved it so much.
Oh, just like,
Yeah.
and like I took that photo without the thought that someone would maybe buy it one day.
Yes, yeah, because it spoke to you, didn't it?
So I want to get back to the business side of it, but tell me when you had that moment first.
Where somebody was willing to...
No, just like someone recognized your work and you felt good about it, whether or not they paid for it. Do you have a moment that you're like, oh, this is cool?
Oh, God. I think I've had quite a few moments.
Great.
But I think when I did used to have them, that self-belief probably wasn't quite there.
Okay.
You think it's
imposter
a fluke
syndrome?
or it's the imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, because there's a lot of creatives out there that suffer from imposter syndrome.
It took me a while to feel like I was a proper photographer. It took me a while, even though I did have a lot of compliments about my work. I always wanted to just do the more creative side of things, I think. But then I had to put that aside to probably be more
Safe.
so you can do weddings and all that kind of stuff, then add the creativity in it. So I think really when it you start from camera clubs, really, people might think, I don't know, they put them into a certain box.
Yeah.
But the people I met, they taught me so much. I learned so much through that, and that gave me the confidence, I think, to develop it. But whether there's that one moment, maybe when I met Richard Ianson, who founded Lonely Planet Stock Library.
Wow.
And I met him at a talk that I was actually talking at. It was the first time I ever talked publicly, and I think my tongue was stuck to the roof of my mouth because I was so nervous.
Yeah.
And I asked him to critique my work, some of my travel shots. He said, yeah, send them to me. So this is the guy that created literally the Lonely Planet Stock Library. And I went, oh, okay. And he really liked my work and really helped me get into Lonely Planet. And a couple of times I rang him to talk, and he was in China or Japan, and he would just ring me straight back because it would go to his voicemail. And I'm like, that's amazing that he gave me that opportunity and really helped me. So that was where I did a few self-funded trips, because he said you need 500 images to enter the stock library.
Yeah.
But I can't. One moment. I think because my career's been over quite many years now, so
That's okay. That moment was great.
yeah,
That's a
even
great
that,
moment.
and going right back to when I started. You'd have heard of Tony Hewitt.
Yeah.
When I went to the camera club, we put up on the wall. There was no digital then. When you were a beginner, you put up 6x4s. the more experienced people had 8x10s and 8x12. So I think we were allowed to do 6x4s and 5x7s. You'd go in, they'd all be stuck on a piece of timber like this. And, I can see my hand going up and down. And I had one single flower, a little yellow sunflower, and Tony Hewitt loved that and gave it first on the night. And I remember, but not only that, the way he spoke about photography and his passion. And that night I remember going home and thinking, I was so buzzed by that one, winning that first in a tiny little 6x4. And I just wanted to, that was my passion. I just wanted to absorb it and learn everything that I could.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
that was quite a defining moment back then, just a little 6x4. I've still got the image of just a single yellow flower.
I love it. The business side of it, though, is sometimes, a lot of the time, not so fun. And I'm not talking about the tasks that are tedious, like the admin, the pitching, and all of that. I'm talking about the times where you just feel like, I'm not really creative. I don't feel creative anymore.
Yeah, when you're doing something a lot, you think, is my work still good? Am I still going to be able to get commissions? Am I still going to be able to get... Because you're really, like, when you're in a 9-to-5 and you've had that job for 10, 20 years, although you can still be made redundant, but you know what you're doing every day.
Yeah.
So that's the easy... I'm sure there's stress involved, but you know you're going to turn up, your job's going to be there. But with this kind of industry, and you talk to other photographers and other travel writers, and they're looking for the next trip. They're waiting for somebody to contact them. Hopefully somebody will give them another trip, another story. So you're always realigning yourself with that. Yeah,
the uncertainty.
The uncertainty is there. Have I got enough trips this year? Have I got enough commissions? If I like a certain gap between trips. So I do turn trips down because I don't want to do them. I don't want to come home and go away in 3 days' time.
Yeah.
So, then I worry that if I'm turning them down, is that going to hold me in bad light? Because if they want you there now. So that I just have to try.
You don't want to become a slave
to myself. And then when you do that, you do get tired, then you get worn out, then you don't want to do it. So you've got a few balls in the air, isn't it? It's a bit of a juggling act sometimes.
And if you do too many trips in a row, it's not going to be your best work anyway.
It's not because you get, you just get, oh God, I'm getting on a plane again.
Yeah. And same with weddings, with the wedding photography game. It's what I have a business.
Yeah.
When I got really popular and a lot of demand, I'd be booking weddings back-to-back weekends.
Yes.
But back-to-back as in Friday, Saturday, and then the weekend after, Friday, Saturday. So 4 weddings in 2 weeks.
It's not only that, it's the weddings are like running a marathon.
You do. Yeah, it's running a marathon, but it's the creative spark that there's a limit per day, per week.
You've got to be on especially when you've got a wedding and you turn up 8 and you can be there till midnight.
Yeah.
Dealing with a lot.
What are your thoughts on the creative spark? Is it something you can just turn on?
I don't know. I think the right thing has to present itself, because you can be in the most beautiful place in the world, but if it's just a sunset coming down over a beach and there's no clouds, you can photograph that, but if you photograph that a lot, how do you turn that into something that's got those elements? Like, so if you go to somewhere like India, Kolkata, somewhere like that, for example, that creative spark's there all the time, unless you really don't want to photograph. Because it's a story happening, unfolding every few seconds.
Yeah.
It's an amazing place to photograph. The content there is unreal. I mean, you can just sit there all day. You'd have a million photos. But if you go to somewhere where, unless the light is right, you still got to have the right elements to get that creative spark. Like something like street photography. Like, to me, that takes my eye a little while to get in, and then I start seeing things to get that creative spark going, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you need a few people, and you need a few interesting people. Not just. I mean, you can do it in any way. It just depends on the angle, your depth, your lens you use.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
It's. I don't know. There's so many different aspects to photography, isn't there?
I like bringing people together. When I started expressing more of my love for it on Instagram, I started to turn the camera around on me with the phone.
Yeah, and you do such a good job.
Oh, thank you. The Instagram stories was my big point of difference, because I started to say, hey, it was 2018, late 2018, and I said, I'm going around taking photos in the city, because I was a school teacher. We didn't have anything else to do after school. If you want to come join, let me know, direct message me. And I had one person, and then another person, and another person.
Yeah.
And then my wife said, can we hang out one night, at home? I said, yeah, good point. And then I did a group session, 1-on-20. Yeah. And then we went to like a bar after, grabbed our laptops and did some editing together. It was so cool.
Yeah.
3 months later, 120 people.
Wow.
And nothing's been done like that since.
Yes.
And we had 3 of them across 3 months.
What were the logistics of that then? If you've got 120 people,
exactly.
Just you, or did you? Yeah.
So a friend of mine named Nick, he and I did this. So he had his network, I had my network.
Yeah.
He had some creators, I guess had followers. And I still talk to a lot of these guys to this day.
Yeah.
And we invited models, up and coming or existing or whatever, and it was all free, right? Yeah. And then any photographer that wanted to do portraits, it was such a vibe, Yeah,
I wonder if I must have heard about that along the line. How can
it's called Sev's Tours, and a whole bunch of photographers rocked up. The first one was wild. It was really cool. And we went around Elizabeth Quay.
Okay.
We went through the streets. We were chasing the neon lights, because that was such a good reflection for the portraits. And I was in amongst it. But then the second one, we went through the city, started at John Oldham. And the one that in the city, they've got the little lake around, little island in the middle. Just at the bottom of Kings Park.
Yep, was there last night.
And then we walked across to, we went on top of a car park roof where everybody takes their photos there. And then we went a couple of bits and pieces, and it was just like fantastic. And then we did one in Fremantle. The logistics, though, they started to not be overwhelming, but just annoying. I was like, I don't want to deal with this.
120 people, that's quite a lot.
It wasn't the people, it was the ratio of models to photographers.
Okay, and people getting in doing that.
Yeah, so there was less models, or the photographers were a bit like sus, or there was exchange in information, and the photographers that took the photos didn't give the images to the models.
Okay.
But there was no jurisdiction or whatever set by me. Yeah. If I did it again, which I might, I would say, hey guys, you know how to exchange numbers. If you want your photos taken, have an agreement or whatever.
Especially when everyone's doing it for free anyway. So
But that was an awesome experience, and it was really cool to see that in Perth. And I've never done a photo walk outside of that in a different scenario, apart from when I went to Chicago. And a couple of the American guys were doing that. And that's where I got the idea from. I was like, I need to do this in Perth,
I know. I've listened to some of those YouTube photographers in places like New York. I can't remember the name of them, but there's about 3 of them, and they have 5 minutes to finish the task, and they run around. Have you seen them?
Yeah.
And it was really good. And what they come up with within that short amount of time, it's like, wow. Yeah. But New York, again, it's like Kolkata. There's a crazy
New York is like my favourite place to photograph. It's you could go any street corner for like half an hour, have 100 photos.
Kolkata, you just go.
Yeah. So with kids and aspiring photographers that want to make it into a job, what would you tell them?
Find out first, I think, where your passion lies, what you want to photograph. Do some short online courses, but never give up. You know, if it's something that is the real passion that you want to follow, just go for it. Really go for it, because there's a whole world that's waiting for you. And even though there's a lot of other photographers and writers, if you just keep pushing and you've got that vision, it just takes one person to notice you. It's like Hollywood actors. How long does it take for them to get noticed, you know? If they don't give up, that doesn't mean they're going to get there.
What's your definition of go for it?
Oh, go for it. Just try everything, every angle, research. If you want to, if you want to find an editor of a magazine, don't just write to the generic address. Find out who that editor is. Make sure you find out that name. Ring them up, find it out. Because you'll look inside a magazine and it will say editor at. But you need the name of that person. So it's all those little details. And I think be honest for yourself is quite a big one as well. A little bit of bullshit sometimes goes a long way.
A little bit, okay.
A little bit, but not a whole lot.
Yeah, don't over-exaggerate.
Don't over-exaggerate, because if you can't deliver, that's it. And if you do get that opening, really try and deliver above and beyond. That's one thing, you know. If they want 10 photos, give them more. And even when I did the portrait work, we had big printers. We did all our work. We had a framer that was part of our little team. We always over-delivered. Even if we had a package, we'd give them more. So for me, it was just about meeting that and a little bit more.
As a photographer, how did you overcome rejection from pitching for a job overseas somewhere?
I just look for the next editor.
Straight away?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I had an editor just a couple of days ago. She was interested and she wanted to know who the company was. So I told them it might not have been the right company, because some editors will, I don't know how much to say online. Some editors will then go to that company because they want advertising from that company. So there was interest, and then it was sort of, I guess, shut down because maybe that wasn't working. So then now I'm thinking, well, the next person to go to. So just accept rejection, because it's part of it, really.
Yeah.
You know, if you can't accept rejection, then I would say don't try it, because you will get rejected. That's a given. It's like the sun coming up. You will get rejected.
And what about feedback in terms of when you have delivered? What do you look for in that space from the editors?
Some editors will say nothing.
Is that a good
thing? Thanks, Lynn.
Is that a
I
good
think I've spoken to other writers, and it's all the same. It's across board. Some editors will say, I love that. But the next, like if they don't say anything, if they commission you again, you know you're okay.
Yeah, that's it. That's the feedback.
That's the feedback.
Yeah.
I thought, oh no, they didn't say anything. It must not be any good.
Would it be worth following up and saying something like, hey, editor, really enjoyed my time working together. I didn't receive any feedback from you, and I know you're busy, but would love to hear something from you. Constructive criticism, roast me if you need to. I just want to get better so we can work together again.
I have thought about doing that many times when I used to send them off, because there you are, you've got your little pristine, edited, highly edited, whatever, and off it's gone. You press that button, and then you go, and then there's nothing. It's like a black hole, nothing.
It's worse when it's a wedding photography thing.
Yeah, well, the same thing. You send your photos off, nothing.
Yeah.
You know.
So how do you deal with that?
I used to want to do that and say, you know, to the editor, what did you think, basically, in a nutshell, basically what you just said.
Yeah.
But I thought then that shows my lack of experience. It's like a bit of a red flag. So, but there again, honest feedback can help you improve on the next feature.
Yeah.
Because it's only that one, my very first one that I said about Arnhem Land. It was a diary, and she rewrote quite a lot. And I went, oh God, that must have been terrible. And I've only had that happen that first time. And the people that I write for have recommissioned me quite a lot. So I'm taking that. But I'd love to get feedback.
Yeah.
But then again, they have so many emails. You're then putting pressure on them to reply, and it's
you gotta be
their
respectful.
time as well. So do they have time to say, oh, well, I would have done this or done that? You know, you're asking them to do another job, so to speak.
Fair point. Fair point. Right. I've got a section here called Pod Decks. Now, the Pod Decks section is a couple of different themes that we can go through, but I'm going to choose one for you, and then we can go from there. So these questions are to be answered quickly.
Okay.
And it's just like a quick fire sort of thing. And we're going to go with something fitting. Globetrotter. Would you consider yourself a globetrotter?
Yes.
How many countries have you been visited? Have you counted?
No. Not enough. Is that going?
A little bit closer, yeah. Okay. Sweet. What's the first thing you do when you arrive at a new destination?
You want the quick answer?
Yeah.
There's a big long pause. Well, you usually kind of go first to the hotel, but I guess after that, if it's somewhere I've never been, that that first look at somewhere, that fresh look at a new destination. So I'm all eyes, because it's quite exciting if you've not been there before.
Can you tell me a time where you did that and you were like, wow, this is incredible?
Bhutan pops to mind. I think Bhutan, because I had just come straight from Dhaka, Bangladesh, which I don't know if you know, is crazy, crazy city on steroids. And then I think it's 2 hours from Dhaka to Bhutan. Then you arrive in Bhutan and it's fresh mountain air. And it's monasteries everywhere you look. It's an incredible landscape. And that, I think, that was a wow moment, arriving there.
What was the most important item you have lost on a trip?
My hat.
Oh, no.
I was coming back from Antarctica. A hat. One of my favourite hats.
At least there wasn't a camera.
Wasn't a camera. Don't say that. I've broken cameras. I haven't lost anything from my hat.
And you went to Antarctica. Tell me about that.
I was running a photography tour there. So I was actually running it with Seng Ma, but he fell sick before we left. So I ended up running it by myself. Had 17 guests.
Yeah.
So incredible, but full on, and a very challenging trip.
What's the itinerary on that?
Well, they have their itinerary that the guests can follow, and then within that we have like photographic sessions and workshops for them when they're in the field, so to speak.
That's one of my bucket list goals, is doing one of those.
Look, it's incredible. I'd love, like Bhutan, I'd love to go back and experience it in my own world.
Yeah.
And not have a group of people that you're you're worried about their welfare, and it was at the time that COVID had just stopped and we were allowed to travel, so that every passenger had to get tested before they got on the boat.
Wouldn't have been any COVID in Antarctica. It's too cold.
Well, they were on the boat though.
Yeah, true.
And then they had to go into.
That's
lockdown.
one of the other things I would love to do one day, is go to a place 3 times at least.
Yeah.
Know it, like in and out, and then organise a tour there.
Yeah, that's what I've done. I've been to Madagascar 3 times. First time I met a most amazing guide, and then used that guide to run a tour there last year and previously. Yeah.
What's the creepiest place you have visited?
We're actually scared. I can't think of any.
Nothing? Okay.
Creepiest place. What, were you kind of looking over your shoulder? can't think of any way. Sorry.
Would you rather take a train through the Swiss Alps or a boat ride down the Amazon?
I think a train through the Swiss Alps, because I've never been there and I've done lots of Amazon-y kind of things. So I think I'd have to go train through the Swiss Alps.
Yeah. Do you visit much? Do you visit many museums?
I used to. Some I find interesting. Some I don't.
Was there any that blew you away?
You're asking some difficult. I have to think. You want quick answers. I tell you, the light one, and that was on Jeju Island, and it's not really a museum, but where it's like a 3D, and they put like Monet on the wall, and it's water ceiling, like digitized images. So it's like a moving museum.
Yeah.
I think that's quite incredible.
Cool.
And then they've got each room have you heard of them? They've got, each room is like a different theme.
Yeah,
one might
yeah,
be
yeah.
waves, one is art.
Yeah.
Not a museum as such, but you feel like you're in that landscape.
Yeah.
So that's quite incredible, I think.
All right.
The Henyao Museum was also really, really interesting. Because all the Henyao women are talking on videos about their life since they became a Henyao from age 15, because there was no schooling. So that was the life they went into. So that was very, very interesting museum.
What was the most stressful trip you have taken?
Antarctica.
Yeah. How many days did you go?
3 weeks. We're away for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cold.
Not as cold as you think, because you've got so many layers on, and then you've got a nice warm boat to go back into.
Yeah,
so
true.
it's incredible on the ice. It's absolutely incredible, but you're limited to how long you can spend. And we went down the coast, so we actually only had 2 days on the ice. I think maybe four sessions in total.
Yeah.
But it was stressful, probably for different reasons as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the most touristy thing about you?
Touristy thing. I like to buy a bangle.
There you go. That's good.
That would be like, something that is pertinent to the place that I've been to that reminds me. So I've got so many now, I can't remember where I've got some of them from. So that would be my touristy go-to.
All right, last one. What do you value most about traveling?
Culture.
Yeah.
Finding out about traditions and beliefs that are dying out is my thing. Yeah, I love learning about the culture.
Right. Now, the phone's ringing. You've got Lynn at 15 years old on the line. Lynn hasn't taken first steps out to travel yet. And picture Lynn as also the kids out there right now in this world, current day and age, who are curious about maybe what you've done or what you're doing, or just curious about something else completely unrelated. What do you tell your young Lynn?
Oh, have I got to speak into here? Have I?
On this side.
This side?
Yeah, this side.
So you do this in your little podcast.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Oh, hello, Lynn.
Yes.
Thanks for calling. If you want to follow in your footsteps and you've got something that you really speaks to you, that warms your heart, that you wake up with that thought, you go to bed with that thought, find ways of getting into that career, because there's always a way. There's always a door. There's always a little course that can help you. I really believe there's a way if you really want to do it.
Perfect.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Such good manners. When was the last time you used one of them?
I can't remember.
We've reset the time. We've reset it.
We've reset it, right?
We've reset it. It's someone can go, back at Sev's podcast, I use that. Talk to myself. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the discussion.
Thank you for having me. But you didn't say what was the thing you were going to say on the podcast? You said, I haven't told anybody this before, and I'm going to talk about it today.
Oh, geez, what were we talking about out of the context?
When we came in, you said something about, I haven't said this before on a podcast.
Oh, okay. All right. Interviewer.
What was that?
Interviewer becomes the interviewee.
Yes.
The moving from photos, when I started with photos to videos, has been a very exhausting experience.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong, I like making videos.
Yeah.
But I don't love it as much as I love taking photos.
Okay.
And I don't want to make a business out of taking photos. Like, I made a business out of taking wedding photos.
Yes.
And I'm not going to do wedding photos after 2026 with
So
my
you
last wedding.
Yes, yeah.
But all I want to do in this world is go take photos anytime, anywhere. Creatively, on a Tuesday afternoon or at like 10 o'clock in the morning on a weekday.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be at the retirement age to do that. So the business side has taken over.
Yeah. So that was the challenge was really leaving that behind as for a profession to go into the video side of things.
And when I was a teacher, I had that magic.
Because you were a maths teacher, weren't you? Yeah.
I can go after school, before school, on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
But I wanted more.
Yeah.
But I got less for now.
Because when it becomes that profession like weddings and when you've got to produce.
The expectations.
The expectations, the pressure. Some of the magic definitely goes. That's why street photography for me is that.
Yeah, exactly.
Which we are doing this afternoon.
Oh.
PPWA. There are 3 walks.
So
I have my camera ready to go.
Oh. And just for the audience, not that it matters what camera you have, but for those that would be curious, what do you shoot with?
Fuji. Got the X Pro 3 and the XT4.
Yeah.
And they're just, I'll get it out and show you.
Yes, show the world.
A little prime, half a peanut, half an eaten peanut butter sandwich.
Fuji will be loving this episode now. Sponsored by Fuji. Fuji,
Yes,
give me one of the...
Fuji. I can come your ambassador any day.
Yes. I'm sure you can. I'm sure. Have you tried reaching out?
I have a friend that is an ambassador, Charlene Winford. She's in Singapore. And she has just put up actually a picture of her battered X Pro 2. She's an amazing creative photographer. If you want somebody on your podcast overseas, Charlene Winford is your woman.
Let's do it. Connect
but
me.
yes, just a little 23. And I've got some filters because we're supposed to be doing some special effects with Chris Saunders and Chris Stark.
Oh,
we've got 3 little
filters.
walks, so I'm just going to have a little play.
Wow.
Putting those over.
So does that just give it a bit more of a warm vibe?
Well, one is a diffuser and one is champagne.
Oh.
So it just gives them.
All right.
Yeah. They do some they put Vaseline and stuff on the lens. But I don't think there's enough time for that today.
No, that's cool.
Have a little play.
All right. Well, thanks
Nice
again.
To have a play.
Thanks again for coming in.
Thank you, Seb.
And I'm gonna get everybody to discover you on the internet now.
Thank you.
Editors out there.
Call me.
Can write, can capture, and can tell a story. Yeah. All right. As always, guys, thanks for watching, listening, wherever you are in the world, now or in the future. And Lynn, thanks again.
Thank you.
Hit her up. Check out her stuff.